I have committed every crime in the Indian Penal Code except murder.
He fought as if he had nothing to lose. Sold his wife's jewelry to keep the press going. If NDTV is owned by Adani, if CNBC is owned by Reliance, nothing wrong. But for me, my differentiator is trust.
Do you think the trust in media has collapsed?
100%. Trust in everything has collapsed. Society is in that mood to be skeptical about whatever comes out. The biggest opportunity we have right now is that nobody trusts anything. Just by reading the Indian Express and by sending notices to everybody whose name came in the Panama Papers, we have recovered 18,000 crore rupees that was stashed abroad. So when trust erodes in institutions,
You protect trust.
For him, his legacy is a privilege that he has to protect. This is Anant Goenka. This episode isn't about the state of journalism. It's about the price a business pays if it loses the consumer's trust in the Instagram era.
it's not as hard to be an independent journalistic first outfit as people in my industry think. I am being tough on government, I'm being tough on every state government, on the central government, I'm being tough on everybody.
When you entered the family business, you had Shekhar Gupta. Did he make your life tough?
Literally, I had no place to sit when I came in. There was a small space outside the canteen, the passageway. वहाँ पे मैंने चढ़ आके बैठ गया. I remember once in the newsroom, I opened a Twitter account. I said, Anant, why should Indian Express have a Twitter account? Twitter is a place of lies. Internet is a place of lies. All of us have established relationships with Google and Instagram and Facebook. We haven't established relationships with the end customer. Instagram is a place of noise. You can be the trusted voice in that noise.
Is that why you acquired Saurabh Dwivedi as a brand? Will there be a version of Lalan Top on Indian Express?
I regret my statement of saying PS stuff as you want.
Before we get into the conversation, I would like you to introduce yourself the way you would to somebody who doesn't know you.
That's done a few interviews in the last 10-15 years, but why do you ask your guests to introduce themselves?
Because my way of introducing a guest would be similar from the first episode and the 100th episode. But the guest introducing themselves would be very different.
I think it's a damn good idea. मतलब go deep spiritual introduction.
जैसा आपको मर्जी.
No, I think I'm somebody who's always confused and lost between being a businessman and a journalist. So that's all. I mean, I think that's how I would. If you ask me to think and introduce myself, that's the one thing that comes to mind is it's you should, after 15 years in your career, you should have a clear answer. But I feel I'm always a little bit confused about that. I want to be a business person who's there to protect journalism. But more and more I find that the heart beats for journalism too much to be thinking of yourself only as a business person. Obviously, if you have a professional life, I'm just a normal family guy who's very obsessed with his kids and his home and his family, and a failed drummer.
Okay.
It was the one skill that I've always wanted to, I love doing, but I'm always, it was just one of the many things that I picked up and never finished.
What was first job like at Bloomberg?
My first job was, I was like anybody's first job. I was, trying to impress the boss with me. I was ego worker and that kind of a thing. I was very excited. So I was in Bloomberg's commercial team for UK. I learned how how global media thinks about business, like beyond content. It was very, like that you can imagine, like how a Murdoch would think, how Murdoch's commercial team would think. It was great.
Have you seen the Netflix Murdoch series?
Not yet, no.
I'm watching it. It's pretty nice.
Yeah, okay, good. I want to see
Yeah.
it. In fact,
Also about how generations think.
yeah. In fact, there was a guy called, I'll just get the name. blanking out, sorry, but there was a guy. Murdoch started with having a very interesting rivalry with an Australian media company,
Yes. Which they bought later on.
which they ended up buying.
Yes. I do not want to put words in your mouth, but I will ask a very straightforward question. Do you think the trust in media has collapsed in the past decade?
100%, right? But trust in everything has collapsed. I'm not defending media. I think a lot of media or stuff we've done to ourselves to erode trust. I like to believe that Express is different. When you say media, that's one thing. I think Express likes to...
I'm talking about the industry at large.
If you talk about the industry, I think a lot of the things that some of my peers have done have eroded trust, and they've done it, taking the gamble and knowing that it might. And it has. And now we're at that point in time in the world where any institution trust is being eroded. You name it, and there is less trust, right?
Why so?
Now this is we can talk about this at length, I guess, but this tends to happen every time you see societies turning populist. Every time you see populist movements, I'm not saying only political. I'm just saying seems to be something where society wants to revolt. Whatever societies were taking for granted, you revolt against. So whether it is judiciary, whether it is press, whether it is the people in power, business people, whatever, there is a sense of anti-establishment that kind of just that it just bubbles. It's like a collective feeling that happens in society. It's happened many times all over the world. It's happened, famously in America so many times. It's happened famously in all over several parts across Europe. And I don't think any institution is safe when that happens, and it's great. It's great because public then questions. Public questions and they ask and they push. Of course, it sounds very like unsettling,
right?
But I think it keeps everybody on their toes, right? Look, let's face it, as an industry, as a news industry, the way we write our story, just going back to my space, the way we write, the way we do our journalism, you've been a journalist for a long time, who, what, where, when, why, how, that in the first 35 words, inverted pyramid, nut graph, it's been the same. We've been doing it the same way for the last 100 years. Not much has changed. If you pick up a newspaper, and I do this a lot, I always go through my archives every now and then. I always enjoy doing that. If you pick up the Indian Express in the 60s or the 40s or yesterday, I mean, obviously the personalities have changed, but a lot of the news, the way it's written, the way I'm reading it, is quite very similar. So I think I don't think as an industry we've been innovative enough. I don't think as an industry we've been. So I think it's expected that people would ask these questions, and people would. I mean, it was every institution is being questioned. Trust is being eroded in every institution. Sure, media also.
I'll get a little deeper into this, but before, so in a space where trust is getting eroded, what are you trying to protect?
The risk of sounding cliched, I'm saying this, but I'm also saying that this is our biggest opportunity. The reason Indian Express continues to grow, in the year 2026, we're selling more copies of newspapers in the city of Delhi than we ever sold, right? The reason that's happening is because people want something they can trust. So when trust erodes in institutions,
you protect trust.
I protect trust. I mean, that's our endeavor, and we do everything we can for that, right?
Can I say that you're trying to protect relevance?
I'm relevant because I'm trusted.
So relevance comes from trust.
100%, right? And I'm in a sense I'm in the business of relevance, right? I've done some great, like some of the best investigations I've seen happening in the last year have come in the Express, right? Some of the best stories, the hardest stuff. If nobody reads it, there's no point. So I have to be relevant. To be relevant, I have to be doing great journalism, but I have to be doing it in a way that people are able to consume and they're able to trust that what I'm saying is right. Now there'll be 100 people who won't trust.
Yeah.
There'll be several people who won't trust because, well, hey, you're in that mood. Society's in that mood to be skeptical about whatever comes out.
Correct,
You're
correct.
skeptical about the government. You're skeptical about the opposition. You're skeptical about the press. You're skeptical about the judiciary. You're skeptical about literally everybody and anything. You're skeptical about your landlord. You're skeptical about your parents. You're skeptical about your wife. Everybody's skeptical about everything,
Yeah.
right? So in all of that, how do you be relevant? You fight for trust. And so in this mad world like in our industry, there are 550 news channels, right? 4,500 newspapers, 1.5 lakh registered publications. I don't know what they're doing. How is one newspaper organization and one news organization going to be different? How we going to differentiate ourselves? And it's coming down to the fact that we are differentiating ourselves on something which should be hygiene, but that is just trust. By the journalism we do, by the fact that we call out everybody across the board, we have no favorites. We take position on issues. We don't take position on ideology. We don't take position on friends, or we don't take position on party lines. We take position on issues, and we take positions that we believe are true to the values that we believe in. We don't take positions just because somebody's an advertiser or somebody is, we can't. I mean, these are all things that have been said for many years now,
Right.
but it's more true or more important to remind ourselves of these values today than ever before, because there is a basic erosion of trust. So in this world where trust is being eroded, if we double down on it, that's our differentiator, and that's what's helping us so far.
Who all are trying to get trust back and who are not. And the number of people who are trying to is very few.
So my issue with people who think that they're fighting in the trust game, or people who think that trust is important, is that trust equals agree with, right? Like if you agree with me, then you trust me.
Right.
That's the tough game that we are actually in right now, where we want to say and we believe that you please disagree with me, but that doesn't mean you should not trust me because you disagree with me. If we take an issue, if we take a position, for instance, on something which you feel otherwise, it should not erode your trust in me, right? If my mom tells me, and we have a debate about the fact that RBI should be dropping repo rate, right? And she'll say, no, they 100% should. They're not doing it because government is telling them government is telling them to. They don't want to do it, and we'll have a whole fight about RBI's growth versus conservatism, whatever. It doesn't mean I don't trust the RBI, or doesn't mean that I don't trust my mom just because I don't agree with her on that particular position.
True.
Right? Like I trust her.
Beautiful analogy.
Over time, people realize that it is coming from integrity and honesty. It's not coming from any other vested interest. And it really helps that we don't have any other businesses, We're just doing journalism.
I've heard you saying this before as well. So
We're just doing journalism. People are really discerning consumers of news. They recognize that, and it shows in the paper.
Correct.
If I was, if I had some massive real estate business, or if I had some massive startup investment business, or if I was, building universities, had a power generation center. Like if I had other things going.
But what's wrong in that?
Look, there's nothing wrong. I mean, there's nothing wrong if NDTV is owned by Adani. There's nothing wrong if CNBC is owned by Reliance. Nothing wrong. Anybody can do anything. But for me, my differentiator is trust. So if I start doing things outside of things that will make people trust me a little weaker, they look at my content with skepticism, it's not good for my business. Anyway, it's a very tough business. It's a very tough business. Being independent journalism, doing journalism, it's a tough business. If you want to make a healthy margin, if you want to make a sustainable margin in the business of news, it's bloody tough. Now, I feel people are going to look at me with skepticism, it'll get even tougher.
Journalism is perhaps the only profession where the customer is your customer and consumer are separate audience sets. So
My customer and consumer, interesting. Reader and the advertiser.
Yeah, the reader and the advertiser. It's pretty weird. So if you want to buy a soap or a shampoo or cornflakes or anything, you go buy the product, the company makes money. here, apart from subscription, which is a minuscule part of your revenue, or any organization, most of the organizations do not have this revenue. At least you do. But
Tiny yet. Tiny yet. But I will
it's
grow.
smaller portion. It is growing steadily over the years. It has grown. Where you are so dependent on an advertiser to run your institution, and where advertising money is the first to hit whenever there is a global crisis, whether it's recession, Lehman Brothers crisis, recession caused by a financial crisis,
Correct.
a COVID kind of outbreak, pandemic, or an outbreak happening, or a war like right now. Already we have started feeling the pressures of advertisers. I do not know if you have started feeling it.
100%. Oh, 100%. I mean, we haven't started feeling it yet, but like I know, like IPL and all
How do
that.
you freaking run a business where you're so dependent on something, so for situations like this? Every time something goes wrong,
It makes the business tough.
and that is the reason why.
It's tough. It's a tough business. But
And on top of that,
we should have to innovate with diversified revenue streams.
and you
And
talked about we have not innovated.
Sorry.
You started by talking about we have not innovated as an organization, as an industry, right?
We haven't innovated as much as we should have. What do we know about our audience? No, but like
Kuch nahi
nothing.
pata.
We don't know anything about our audience. We don't have user data. We don't have anything actionable. So nobody. In that sense, we've been quite lazy because you've been sitting on something which has been giving you a 20% margin, and been small or large. Every news organization in India has been like established ones. They've been sitting on a 20% margin for like 30 years. Which industry has done that for you? 15% margin pakad lo, but which industry has given you that? Very rare, no?
तो कैसे चलेगा धंधा?
So we didn't finish that. Sorry, I'm actually meandering all over. I'm not giving. We had not discussed. I told you, what all has changed. AI has changed a lot. Unpredictability. So because of AI, the platforms have changed a lot. The AI says the way the consumers are interacting with news information has changed. The platforms are being extremely unpredictable, and corporates have come in and how in news, right? Not only Adani and Ambani, several corporates have found ways to, they wanted to...
The smaller media also. Regional media, completely
regional media,
corporatized.
everybody. And for them, they don't care about losing 20 crore, 30 crore, 100 crore. For them, these are just irrelevant numbers to just have the clout of being something where they think they can control a narrative.
Yeah.
It makes costs go up, when corporates come down to doing things like that. So doing news for the sake of doing news as a standalone business is getting tougher and tougher over time. It just gets harder with every
But it
technology.
doesn't end there. So you talked about platforms, you talked about advertisers. Audience groups are getting more and more fragmented.
Yes.
Attention span, the entire physiological mindset, mental shift that is happening, that against good content today, because we have been feeding shit content to our generations for ages now. Regulations, lawsuits, all of that, and even the way access to power is being seen today, everything is going against good journalism. How do you navigate so much of crime?
I don't agree.
No?
I just don't agree. This is all looking like a trend, but if you pay attention to Express, or you pay attention to some organizations like Express around the world, you will see that people who are doing good journalism for the sake of doing good journalism are thriving because they are building trust. There are islands of trust in the world. I am being tough on government. I'm being tough on every state government, on the central government. I'm being tough on everybody I get content to be tough on. Like, whenever we can take a position, we take. And I promise you, the government, I won't say everybody in the government, but the people who matter and the audiences, they respect us for it.
It has been tough to maintain this respect, or
Not
it is
as tough as people think. Because these are people who have seen the emergency, they've seen the opposition, they were the opposition for all these years.
right?
So these are people who, controversial for me to say this, I know, because everybody's going to but the fact is, if you look at the bigger picture, they respect us. They might not see. They might have to show that they don't. They might have to show that they they have to discredit and delegitimize independent journalism. That is part of their agenda.
That's a different narrative.
It's a
that
different
they have to-
narrative that they have to kind of play. But I think heart and hearts, they respect us. And look, listen, man, I hosted the Home Minister for Financial Express and whatever. We had the Prime Minister gave the Anant Goenka lecture. I mean, it's not as hard to be an independent journalistic first outfit as people in my industry think it is. Panama Papers alone has, according to our RTI application, Panama Papers alone, just by reading the Indian Express and by sending notices to everybody whose name came in the Panama Papers, the government of India, as in you and I, the sort of our reserves in the government of India, we have recovered 18,000 crore rupees that was stashed abroad. Just by reading Indian Express.
Right. That is the impact it
That's the
caused
impact it
because
has.
of the great journalism you did.
It took so many months.
Yeah.
She had no byline coming.
Investigative.
It also takes time to cultivate sources.
Yeah.
So I think I have respect for the process, right? But I also think we're one of the only organizations who's actually tracking productivity of a journalist, not based on stories that they file, but based on page views they earn. Nobody else is doing this in India that I know of. So today we are able to evaluate that XYZ reporter has earned so many page views for, over the course of, whatever, we are able to say so many articles, so many page views on that article, aggregate number of page views, so as a journalist has won over time. When you're able to track productivity based on views, the paradigm changes, and even the guys who are therefore slow or they're filing less, as long as they're above average or above, they're hitting the average. Now we have an understanding now of what the average audience is. So if that, I give you an internal example. I won't say the name, but one of these guys, he writes once you find 2 articles a month. He used to do 4 a month. Okay, now he does 2 a month. Why? Because he has realized over time that if he spends more time on that article and he gets the timing right of when to release it based on the news cycle, he's able to get more page views. So I don't care. I don't want 4 articles or 10 articles. I'm not going to it's not a chappal factory, right? But I want an audience, right? There's a very old thing here. I'm not paying you to write. I'm paying you to be read.
At any point of time, if you feel uncomfortable with any question, you're free to not answer that. Not get into
No.
that.
And listen,
Up to
please
you.
be as tough as you want here.
Yeah. So this is fun. When you entered the family business, you had Shekhar Gupta as the editor-in-chief and the CEO.
I regret my statement of saying be as tough as you want. Immediately regret it. हाँ.
इसीलिए मैंने just इसके बोला आपको कि
No, actually, it's fun. We should do this because nobody's asked and I've never spoken about it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Did he make your life tough? And did he stop you from doing what you actually wanted to do, which you're doing right now?
Yeah, 100%. And look, okay, let's. I've always said I won't. There's no need to talk about this stuff because, it's in the past, and I don't. It's not. Yeah, I'm not very comfortable talking about ex-employees, but because it was a part of my journey, I can share. I'll share a few things, and we'll see where we go. I think a lot of family businesses, this is very common. It happens that the next generation steps in, and there was an old guard which is professional, or which was working very closely with the previous generation, who's uncomfortable.
Rusi Modi or Ratan Tata?
So it's textbook. With me also, I guess it was textbook. Where I think it hurt me a little bit was the fact that I was very excited to learn from him. I came in looking up to him, and I was like, Shekhar uncle, I really was excited about working with him. And he was not. Very evidently, he was not. He told me once, Anant, there's no place for you in Delhi. You stay in the Bombay office.
Oh.
He literally had no place to sit when I came in. And I made place. I was sitting in there was a small space outside the canteen in the passageway. वहाँ पे मैंने चढ़ आके बैठ गया. Um, it was a business. The digital was a separate company. It's a separate department, and it was a separate P&L. And when Shekhar joined, and my dad was very, in a sense, hands off. So he was very invested in, making it comfortable for me to be in the company. But he also was hands off. So he was relying on Shekhar to make that transition happen. So when I entered, and I was never there to threaten. I wanted to work with him. I loved the guy. Yeah? I mean, anybody who was in journalism, he is a fantastic journalist. So when I joined, he insisted I take a salary, right? A proper professional salary. And I was like, listen, a company can't afford it. So, for whatever it's worth, he was a great journalist, but he was a terrible businessman. So when I joined, there was no money. Honestly, I didn't realize how we were going to pay salaries. I forget how we were going to pay off debt to it. I said, salary kaise niklega?
But I just wanted to understand a little bit, because a lot of my audiences would be generational businesses, because this is relevant for anybody who's running a
100%
mom and pop dukan and inheriting that from the father and the uncle would be doing their business, and the MSME, the entire MSMEs of India, right?
100%. Look, I think this problem is there everywhere.
And this is a problem in many business families.
Put your head down and work. Had I got distracted by Shekhar fight and he said this and he said that, I would have only made matters worse. But I think, and this is something that one of my mentors, the guy called Ronnie Screwvala, he started a company called UTV, and I'm sure you know him.
Upgrad, I know him.
Upgrad now, yeah. And he's always, his solution to every problem that I would ever go to him, and his solution in life to every problem is put your head down and work. And it's so, it sounds so simple and it sounds so silly, but actually I think it's very liberating and it's true. Don't get caught up in the ego. Don't get caught up in the,
the entitlements. And
any of that stuff. Just work here. And work in a way where, karna hai. Then you automatically win respect. I needed to hire something. I hired 3 people. People have joined. Computers weren't getting sanctioned. I barged into his cabin and said, listen, man, I've hired 3 people. Their costs coming on my head. I need to make it meet now. I can't make them productive because there's no computer. So can you please sanction these 3 computers? And he was very, he's like, ho jayega. And then like 3 months went and these guys have nothing to do. So was it, look, listen, I wasn't invited. That's the biggest thing. I wasn't welcomed in. I wasn't invited. Certainly he felt threatened. I don't know why.
Did you finally get your computers?
I got my computers with literally like saying, I'm not going to get bullied like this. And I literally just went out, took my credit card and bought computers and put it in the office. I remember once in the newsroom, I opened a Twitter account. Indian Express's Twitter account. And in the middle of the newsroom, because the newsroom was a place of the middle, it was a lot of it is signaling and body language. And so I was walking in, I saw him, I said, Sheikh Uncle, kaise? And he said, Anant, why should Indian Express have a Twitter account? I said, yaar, what do you mean? You have to go where the audiences are, Twitter is a place of lies. The internet is a place of lies. So we should not have a Twitter account. We should just stick to print. And he stormed off. Now, all the people in the newsroom hearing that, they know that there's a rift now between the guy who's supposed to be pushing the digital agenda, who's the next generation in the family, and then the CEO who's saying, boss, I'm averse to digital. I'm averse to this whole endeavor. Because can you imagine not wanting a Twitter account? Can you just imagine? So there are a lot of things like that happened.
It also splits the organization into factions.
Which I wanted, by the way. That was by design. I was very clear because I joined the company literally in the first 10 days. I said, listen, this is not going to work. I'm not going to be able to now move the entire ship to think digital or make them also do digital. So I said it has to be a small silo to begin with, where I want to be able to make my mistakes. I want to be able to get a dedicated team who is working only and only on this. In the investigative space, we did a story recently, or not recently, but a year ago, where we did an investigation of all the museum pieces of all the
Monuments,
not monuments, sorry,
heritage buildings,
of all the artifacts,
artifacts.
all the artifacts from India that were smuggled out of India. We did a story about this one guy who smuggled out all these things. We published 75 pieces that were illegally smuggled by XYZ guy who was sitting in jail, I think in Chennai or whatever. We did that story. 15 days later, the New York Metropolitan Museum, without saying anything, sent an apology note to the Government Cultural Ministry and sent back 15 of those things which were sitting in the Met. It led to this whole cascading effect. There were 500 Indian artifacts which just kind of came back to India just because of that one story, that one investigation. So just tying in a proof of doing journalism in a way that builds trust.
Yeah.
Not just doing journalism that you want your editor to be happy with.
Suddenly, the entire influencer ecosystem, the YouTubers of the world and podcasters and all of that, they have started capturing such large audiences, right? Though it might be a fad that would last for 3 years, some would last for 4 years or 5 years. How do you continue to create content of value and trust where there is so much of noise on the internet? The internet is extremely noisy.
Yeah. We had the Screen Awards on Sunday. Literally, like, just blew up on Instagram in so many different ways. Some were praising, some were upset about some jokes because there's some controversies. Like every other award show has controversies. I did an interview with Sam Altman, which went all massive virality on social media. Rekha Gupta Adda we had done, that got a lot of traction on social media for reasons that we didn't script. So many moments in my career I've seen where things have just blown up and become part of the noise, and everybody's kind of commenting, having an opinion and all that stuff. This is the reality of our world. We have to figure out how we use it to make our business better. The biggest opportunity we have right now is that nobody trusts anything. I don't think trust and format are at odds. That's what Shekhar uncle told me when I joined the business. Now, why should Express be on Twitter? Because Twitter is the place of lies. Instagram is a place of noise. But you can be the trusted voice in that noise on Instagram. You just have to
build that.
Have to want to do it, and it's not easy. It's more work.
Right.
And we have not been successful at that. I mean, it's very tough to convince some of the old school journalists, who want to just write their article and kind of stick to that.
5 people in the digital business.
Yeah, there were like 5 or 6 people in the digital business, maybe.
How big is the team now?
550.
Digital?
Digital alone.
10 years from 5, 15 years, right? How many?
Now it's been 14 years.
Almost
Now
14,
it's
15 years.
I guess.
So 14 years, 5 to 550.
Yeah. I don't think team size is any any indicator of a successful business. But yes, of course,
it also
we've grown
shows the amount
tremendously.
of work you would be doing, right?
Yeah, of
Somewhere
course.
people shows the amount of work.
100%.
200 million unique users
Yeah. So we
coming
topped out
to
at-
all platforms put together.
No, not so. Social is a different animal. I'm not counting social. But outside of social, on our own platforms, maybe coming on
Your
our
own
own
platforms,
sites, our own apps.
own sites.
Yeah. So we topped out at 220 million. When I joined the business, we were at 1 million. But also, internet penetration was also much lower when I joined the business. So, I mean, I can't take all the credit. I mean, we just rode the wave, basically. But we rode it well. And we rode it in a way where we made a profit. Every year we made a profit. We have never, we never dip into any reserves or dip into
Last
anything.
year?
Last year we didn't. Last year I think we broke even. Last 2-3 years has been very tough for digital, and we can get into that because that's dynamic. But I think it's come to a point now where it's become, all social media platforms have become so much noise, and they're losing their authenticity because you can control narratives with money.
Right.
So that's when these guys kind of would probably take a step back. People say all the time that the audiences today want to follow individuals and not follow institutions. That is true. But the shelf life of an individual is very limited. Somebody who's famous on Instagram today Everybody follows him and everybody trusts him, whatever. 4 years, 3 years, 5 years, 6 years max, 10 years max, the guy will lose it. Nobody is staying beyond 10 years. You give me a name and we'll tell you how long he started and how long he lasted for. Legacy media, if it wants to push you, then you can stay for longer. But even then, once you're an individual, it gets very tough to have a long shelf life. Institutions have longer shelf lives. Yes, right now it may look like the institution doesn't have the reach that an individual does. But if you're playing the long game, we have to think institution first and not personality first. I would love to have several personalities under the institution, domain experts, right? Like New York Times has got fantastic domain experts right now speaking on Instagram. Economist has also come down to putting a camera on their journalists, right? The editor-in-chief of The Economist, nobody knew his or her name for the last, 100 years. But you have to be doing it as an institution. You can't, if you become an individual, more power to you. Listen, all more power to you. If you can do it, great. 5, 6, 10 years, you're able to maintain a reach and have credibility. Yeah. Great.
I'm always having this battle with my YouTube growth manager and everybody. They say, I never wanted to have a sign of saying that the second act with Sunny Sen. But he said, the second act, as in the show's name, with Sunny Sen. So
you never wanted to say with Sunny Sen?
I never wanted to say that. I never wanted to have my face on the thumbnails of the videos. I said that कल आप ऐसा कोई गेस्ट लेकर आओगे जो गेस्ट बहुत अच्छा है, लेकिन वो गेस्ट नहीं चलेगा क्योंकि उस गेस्ट का चेहरा कोई नहीं जानता, लेकिन आपका चेहरा उस गेस्ट को खींच लेगा, इसीलिए आपका चेहरा जरूरी है. And I still cringe at that. But I'm
Sunny, same thing. Every now and then I do the Express Adda interviews. I do a lot of them. I never said it should be Anant Goenka show.
Yeah.
I never said it should be Express Adda with Anant Goenka.
Yeah.
I never wanted my name on the thumbnail. And so we have this battle all the time.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a bad idea to have your thumbnail, your photo on the thumbnail. I'm just saying that it can't be only one person. I mean, you can do it. I mean, if you want to.
No, I don't want to.
I don't want to, but I'm thinking
because it's the second act is part of Serenya Circle. Midlife Theory, which my wife is running, is part of Serenya Circle. So we want to have multiple such shows, and so the Serenya Circle should be more important than that one show, and so that's how we are looking at it.
That makes sense, but I'm saying
the institution
for you and even for the Indian Express, we can put a parallel on the endeavors. For Indian Express, it is not a good idea to have only the guest's photo on that YouTube thumbnail, because that guest is seen in several places. What differentiates your interview is who's doing it.
Correct. Is that why you acquired Saurabh Dwivedi as a brand?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I think of it as a brand acquisition purely.
Yeah. Saurabh was that one guy who I think has a massive credibility, appreciation for journalism, and appreciation for institution. See, Saurabh could have broken off and started his own YouTube channel quite easily. It was very rare to find someone who values institution and first he understands and appreciates journalism. So we have a match of values as far as journalism is concerned, but also understands the value of the institution. So if Indian Express were to be a Hindi platform, it needs a face. There's no question about it. And it needs many faces, not just one face. But one
powerful
face is definitely a great way to do it, because we want to do video first.
But aren't you too late in this? You always understood Hindi is important for this nation, but
the horse and the jockey have to find each other, and that can only happen when it happens. You can't force that.
How did you approach him?
I didn't. That's a story for another day.
Can I ask, will there be a version of Lalan Top on Indian Express?
Yeah, so the idea is actually to have that mass reach in India, you can't do it in English. That's the starting premise of our conversation. So the idea of Saurabh is Indian Express in Hindi, video, taking our journalism to the Hindi audience in video.
In video, got it.
Which, by the way, we've been failing at. Buck stops with me. Video took us years to figure out.
But Adda, you're doing well.
Express is more than Adda, no? Express is the 40 articles that are exclusive to us every day.
From that lens, yeah.
So that's the main thing, na, boss. See, we can't become. Express should not. No news institution should be reduced to a talk show.
So that brings me to the meat of what you have been trying to do over the past 15 years, digital, the beast that is almost uncontrollable and nobody has managed to control that. They have tried to do various things to harness that audience. The audience is so fleeting in nature. आज आपके पास है, कल मेरे पास चला जाएगा, परसों किसी और के पास चला जाएगा.
Correct.
So there is no way to kind of restrict that, which you could still do in the newspaper era. Still, you would be an Indian Express loyalist, a Times of India loyalist, so on and so forth. But internet पे वो नहीं चलता. What is Anant Goenka's vision of digital?
Definitely, every decision we make, every call we take is thinking that हम लंबे रेस के घोड़े हैं. And so we keep that very, very conscious of that when whatever we do. But digital, you can't think too far. You just can't. So being somebody who wants to be alive, kicking, thriving, wanting Ramnath Goenka journalism to, be run by my imaginary grandchildren, keeping that larger vision in mind, the best way to tackle digital is to be slow and steady. Slow and steady. Let the ripples even out before you start jumping in. You might remember there was one thing that came out one time. It was called AR, where everybody got damn excited
Augmented
about the
reality,
fact that everybody got damn excited about the fact that you take your phone, open the camera, you put it on an image, and then that image becomes a video. Remember?
Yeah.
It became this.
Snapchat made it really big.
It became this toy that I was like, dude, listen, like, okay, and I remember other newsrooms that like deployed people to start selling ads like that. We let things even out. When it stabilizes, then you double down on it, or then you decide whether you want to take that bait or not. That's how I would think. You go where the audiences are, of course, but I don't like to invest on every digital trend, every technology trend that comes in. So we are, in that sense, we are late on AI. We're late as an organization. We're late on AI, but I'm happier being late than being very reactive, because honestly, it's very distracting. I don't think we have the balance sheet or the P&L to keep reacting to every technology change that kind of comes. Now, the last couple of years, and specifically the last 6 months, tectonic change in how news is consumed, tectonic change in how platforms are behaving, tectonic change in the media industry, tectonic change in how journalism is being produced, everything. And it's been very...
What are the changes?
So I think AI has changed a lot. Because of AI, Google as a distribution platform, is also experimenting so much. So let me put it this way. Every time Google had a algo update, the SEO, how the algorithm works, it would be twice a year. Actually, it was once in 2 years. Then it became twice a year. Now it's once in a week. Right? So SEO as a concept, which is critical to the success of a digital news organization, is becoming very difficult. It's impossible actually. Can't keep being with the trend with SEO. You have to do it, but you can't rely on that because it's just too vulnerable. So the way we've been doing things for the last 10 years is not going to work anymore. A lot of change is going to happen, and we, as an industry, have, I think, all not done enough to do what other news organizations abroad have done, which is to establish a direct relationship with the customer.
Yes.
See, all of us have established relationships with Google and Instagram and Facebook. We haven't established relationships with the end customer. Our job...
You have been trying to do that for a long while now, though. But
Not really. Not with any... I mean, since COVID, we've been trying, but I think our But the interesting thing is that since COVID, we've been trying, but those efforts have to come from a product tech mindset. They can't come from a journalistic mindset. The journalism is great. We do good journalism. And the journalists need to put the reader in the newsroom more. And they need to put the newsroom in they need to put the reader in their heads when they write their articles more than they do. That's all for sure. But the journalism isn't what's held us back to establish a direct relationship with the customer. It is product and tech. And product and tech is the whole non-journalistic side of our business, which I always viewed it as a support function for our journalism. I think the the change now that I don't think we have a choice, and this is what we literally yesterday uh, announced a few hires and a few direction changes, that we have to do what actually Arthur Sulzberger advised me 5 years ago.
Who?
Arthur Sulzberger Jr. He's the
Acha.
promoter of the New York Times. On his first and only visit to India, I had a 30-minute session with him. And I asked him for advice. And obviously I would. He's like 61 years old when I met him then. And he said his advice, I hope you won't mind me quoting him, is that do both. Do the journalism and the technology. Don't invest in one or the other. Whoever invests in only one and not the other, has struggled. So that was his advice, which I thought was good advice, but theoretically good advice, because investing in technology is very expensive, and journalistic outfits can't necessarily afford that. But I think over the course of the last 10, 12 years, we have that little bit of firepower now to kind of take that gamble. So we're going to be investing in product and tech, because product and tech has to be as much of a differentiator. The user experience of the website, of the app, has to be as much of a differentiator as the journalism.
Okay. Do you think that if you look at your entire workforce, critically analyze that, and I dare to say that this is how I would look at a newsroom today, being a former journalist.
Former journalist, not journalist now.
Not the classic journalist, right? Journalist, tech company, now talk show. I really don't know what am I, but I really love journalism.
You asked me to introduce myself, now you introduce yourself.
A journalist come technology entrepreneur trying to build a talk show. If we closely analyze the entire workforce, see, a large portion of reporters / editors are extremely lazy. If we do cost reduction there, a lot of resource and money is freed up to invest in great technology. That great technology can create a lot of efficiency for the hardworking journalists and editors and graphic designers. And when all of this starts actually uplifting the product itself.
I honestly, I don't know. I'm struggling with that. I can never. I wouldn't walk into my office assuming that my biggest strength is lazy. Well, I mean, look, listen.
But in your organization, I know a lot of people who are doing so much more work than so many others.
Yeah. Okay. So look, let me put it. So firstly, I am one of those dinosaurs, I guess, who still have a lot of respect and love for journalists and the professional journalism.
If Mr. Ramnath Goenka were alive today, what in today's media ecosystem he would cringe about, and what would he love?
I'm going to take an aside and tell you that just yesterday, it was one of the most emotional moments for me in the last 10-15 years, because for the first time, I saw Dadaji on video. Just yesterday, we could never find a video of him. Obviously, there are photographs. But just yesterday, I saw a video, and thanks to my colleague Kumi Kapoor, she found one old DVD and sent it. By the time it got given to me in a format that I could watch, it took about 3 weeks or 4 weeks. And finally, yesterday, I saw it. What he did during the emergency was his brand and how he fought how he fought against powers, in a very do what you like. He fought as if he had nothing to lose, although he had a lot to lose. He sold his wife's jewelry to keep the press going. He was completely, Express was completely. It had been reduced by the government with every possible way. They would not let the newsprint come into the office. I genuinely think of Express, he would be proud because we have been independent. So I think he would be happy with Express taking very tough positions in a world where nobody else seems to. There isn't a single news organization that even that has any investigations today.
Yeah, I was actually coming to that. So
There isn't a single, right? There isn't a single organization which, if you look at the last, and I asked ChatGPT this, if you look about 6 months ago, if you look at the last 15 years in Parliament, the most cited newspaper, the most cited news organization in Parliament has been Indian Express consistently. He would have been very happy about that. The most cited newspaper in court judgments has been Indian Express consistently. He'd be very happy about that. What he would not be happy about is the cost of things.
was he also a businessman at the heart of it?
Dadaji was famous for he just didn't like to spend money. He just didn't like to spend money. His journalists were there for the mission. You know, so he would be like, "Arey, bachche ki shaadi main kara dunga." He would give the housing for the guy, give a car, whatever. But cash out. He was famous for keeping a very, very tight fist.
You can't do that in today's day and age.
You can.
Can you?
You can, 100%. I know news organizations who don't pay because they are fighting an ideology war. So then they attract people who are only into the ideology piece.
I don't know how much of that is journalism.
Exactly. Maybe they're in it authentically as activists. They genuinely believe that they need to be activists and they want to see a change. And I respect that approach and the commitment you have to your ideology. But that's not journalism today. There is a big difference between activism and journalism.
Do you have any early memories of you with him?
I have, of course I have.
Your favorite one?
My earliest memories of my life are with him in the press. Because I used to live in Bombay. I was born in Bombay. I live in where he used to live now. I lived there. It was in Express Towers. So his house was on the top. The whole building was an office building. It still is.
Where I met you.
Where you met me, yes. Yeah. That's where he used to live. That was his house. And at the basement was the press. Yeah. Not there anymore, but that's where the press used to be. So my earliest memory, if I think about my earliest memory in my life, it is the noise of the press. Because it was a bloody loud thing. The whole machine was so loud.
Yeah.
And the smell of the ink. And those very rickety stairs to get to the press, and an old man wearing a dhoti sort of holding me while we walk down it. So that is the first. If I think my first memory of my life, it is that. And my memories of Dadaji are actually from the stories about him after he passed, because the walls in my house have stories. It is insane the kind of stories that have been told. And I still meet people. Modi ji gave the Anant Goenka lecture in November. And he mentioned it at the lecture. And then after the event, we spoke for a few minutes. And I had no idea. I keep hearing something new. I had no idea about the extent of Dadaji's involvement in Hyderabad. When Hyderabad was trying to break away from when they weren't joining.
Correct.
They weren't joining the Federation, the Indian...
India as a
country.
Country, yeah.
I had no idea the extent of Dadaji's involvement back then. He was telling me.
What is it to inherit legacy the way you did? Is it a burden? Is it a privilege? How do you kind of process that?
I have never thought of it as a burden. I've always thought of it as only a privilege. And look, I'll be very honest, man, Sunny. I think that a lot of my friends and like a lot of the friends who I was in school with, I think I'm much smarter than they are making way more money than I am. Right? So I'm doing this because it's my legacy. It's my family's legacy to protect.
Of course.
So I've always viewed that as a privilege. I'm always very excited about it. This is what our legacy is. So what our inheritance is. So we've taken those decisions and we're going at it, right? And just being true to that path is it's good. It's good to have a reminder ki ye hai. This is the path that the founder laid for the organization. This is the path we continue to take.
For a 22-year-old, if you have to give them 2 or 3 reasons why they become a journalist, when becoming an influencer is so much sexier today, how would you convince or tell anybody to, and why would you tell them to be a journalist?
If
If they
somebody
have to-
wants to be a journalist and they are wondering whether it is a good idea or a good profession to go, I would encourage them very strongly by saying there's no profession in the world where you will learn as much about as many things as you would by being a journalist. If you want to be an influencer, you're very welcome. As you know, Sunny, and anybody who's tried it, it's not as easy as it looks.
It's
It's
extremely
very
tough.
tough. And not that being a journalist is easy, but having institutional backing is, it gives you a lot of a leg up. It gives you a lot of room to grow, to make mistakes, and gives you the opportunity to make mistakes in a way which won't immediately eradicate your brand. You want to do it if you want to do it to be famous, this is not the place. If you want to be famous, then don't become a journalist at Indian Express or at Times of India or at CNN. Or
Anywhere.
If you want to do journalism, I think it's much better to do it with an institution than it is to do it alone. If you want to do it alone, more power to you, but it's a tough, long haul. Good journalism requires editing, requires somebody to come and tell you, it requires at least 2 rounds of an editor to come and tell you कि ये ऐसा लिख सकते हो, ask you those 3-4 questions which when you're an influencer nobody's there to ask. So your content in that sense becomes a little bit more less trusted than if it comes through a setup of an institutional setup like a legacy news outlet.
Last thing I wanted to ask you, Anant. Top 3 things that you're working on which will shape up Indian Express in a different way or take it forward from where it is today in the next 5 years, not short term.
I think the video project is very exciting to me, to think about Express in a visual way. I think I'm very interested. I'm very excited about our subscription journey now. We've doubled down. We've made some big hires and investments on a product tech perspective, which will help our user experience get better. Which I think is far from where it should be. So I'm excited about that, and I'm very excited about going into these micro communities. So we've chosen a few micro communities. We've chosen legal as one micro community. We've chosen screen as the entertainment player. Can we do entertainment in a credible way, in the Express way? Because everybody thinks entertainment can't be done with credibility. So can we do entertainment in a credible way? So we're choosing a few micro communities. The whole micro community project is something I'm excited about. I'm definitely excited about video. I'm definitely excited about bringing in a new energy and a new focus on user experience and the technology is part of our business. At one point when we were newspapers, we were printing our own papers. Printing was a core skill set. Technology was a core skill set of our product.
True.
Now technology is going to be looked at in a very different way, and so it's a support function.
It
now
became an enabler and all of that.
Now it's going to be a differentiator.
Will it be only video and print?
I'm not going to innovate format. I'm not going to invent formats. I'm going to invest in a format once I believe it's established, it's stabilized, and it's worth going after.
You have been talking about trust a lot, but in journalism there is this saying called show, don't tell. Show me with an example, Anant. What do you mean by trust?
One of the journalists who I'm thinking about, and this is what people don't believe, right? When they say trust means you agree, then there's trust. You disagree, then I don't trust you. Journalism actually is completely at odds with that approach, right? One of our journalists, a guy called Jay Mazumdar, I'm sure you know him.
Yeah,
you know Jay? You work with him?
I have not worked with him, but I know. I've met him once.
He has come in the firing line many times with this government. So, sorry. Chal raha hai kya?
Jay Mazumdar.
He's done lots of interesting stories, investigations in the last year, which has obviously, people who are sympathetic to the BJP perspective have not liked. So nobody believes like, you have to keep reminding them, ki, bhai, this is the same guy who broke the Robert Vadra land story.
Yes.
The same guy. There are so many people in our newsroom. There are so many stories that we have done which irked the opposite side and done by the same journalist. But that's just become so alien to people today to believe that a guy who's tough on one government or one party will be tough on the other party. But a good journalism, a good institution has to be a space for people like that, not just people who come saying, I want to, be tough on one particular party. Right. Chale. I got to run, man. I had a 12 o'clock.
Yeah.